All right, we're recording. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. So, October is Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month. I'm Jamie Reichschlager, an affiliated doula with Green Bay Doulas, and today I'm joined by Fernanda Cobos Nicolette, a Green Bay Doulas client, along with Jana Nordeman, who is a Christian counselor who has over 10 years of experience as a hospice social worker as well. And so today we really want to create a space to talk about loss with someone who has professional expertise and also Fernanda, who has sadly experienced loss herself recently. And we wanted to make a platform available or, a space available so people don't feel like they're alone. And we'll be talking about a few different things today around like why culturally we don't really talk about the grief that happens around pregnancy and infant loss. We'll talk about what that grief process might look like, whether the baby, is inside the womb or outside the womb, how things might look a little different for dads, and then a few pillars of support where if you are going through this situation or you know someone who is, things like what to say or not to say, support networks, rituals, that sort of thing. So we'll get into all of that today. But what I wanted to do was I saw something the other day that really sort of summed up that first point. So we want to talk about like why we should talk about pregnancy and infant loss, even though it's sort of taboo. It's been taboo in the past to talk about it, and people really suffer and go through this grieving in silence. And someone just posted it. It was actually my own midwife who reposted this, and it just says, "Our whole lives we hear, don't talk about your period, don't talk about sex, don't talk about infertility, don't talk about miscarriage, don't talk badly about a pregnancy, don't talk about postpartum depression, don't talk about anything postpartum except the baby. Only a baby matters, not you." And I'm like, that so sums up what a lot of like just what we experience. And whether our babies are living or not living, we are still postpartum, in our bodies and in our thoughts. And you're still a postpartum mom if you experience a loss. And so I thought that was really relevant because of the focus that the babies get in any situation. And we, especially because, being a doula, my number one job is to hold space for the mom and to support the mom. And so that one really stuck with me. And I'm curious if Fernanda, you wanted to talk a little bit more about that, and how you're feeling about sharing your story. And then if you would share with everyone watching, we're so honored to have you in this space and to be open and vulnerable and sharing your story again, because I know you've done it several times. But for anyone who hasn't seen or heard your story before, if you could just share a little bit about that, that would be great.
Sure. Yeah, my name is Fernanda. I'm from Brazil originally. I'm here in US for 5 years right now. And basically, my story is we got pregnant naturally last year. On that time, with some healthy issues like endometriosis, the doctors were saying that the chances that I would be able to be pregnant was less than 10%. And when we figured it out, the pregnancy was for us like a miracle. We were really excited and happy and welcomed this baby. And I had a very good pregnancy. I mean, no issues at all. And because of the COVID and everything, we decided to create a supporting system for us because my husband also is not from here, he's from Italy. And we knew that our families will not be able to come. Then we decided to have a very good supporting system like a doula and doctors, nurses, midwives. I mean, everybody that could help us to go through not only the labor process, the pregnancy and labor, but also the postpartum. And then on that time is the time that I met Jamie in Green Bay Doulas. Jamie is our doula. And I think about April, I was really, I was feeling really well because everything was set up. We had the right doctor, Dr. Sarah Swift. We had Jamie. We had all postpartum already hired, the support for postpartum. Everything was really good. I mean, my daughter was pretty well, and I was about 34 weeks when we couldn't hear heartbeat anymore. We couldn't find heartbeat for her. And I think we share a little bit the story in other videos as well, but I think it's the worst pain that a family can live with. And unfortunately, we lost Beatrice, that is my daughter, with 34 weeks because of a true knot of umbilical cord. And but I think it's important for this conversation we are having today to say again that I'm just here to stand up today and be able to talk because all the support I got since we knew that, since before, but since we knew that, how respectful and humanized the support I received, my husband received. And also everybody respected our choices on that time. We were able to see my daughter, we were able to stay with her and bond with her, like creating memories with her. And I think all this support, because when we are in this situation, we are not able to decide anything, right? You need to be carried through the process because you lost everything. And then I think this is the main reason why today I'm a little more strong to be able to be involved on movements like this and talk about her, because also is a way that I feel her alive on me. Then I think this is a process for us. And of course we feel the pain. It's not a nice thing to pass through, right? Nobody would like to be in this situation. But once we are in this situation, I need to recognize that all the support that we received has been key for us to be able to have Beatrice here live on us and move forward every single step.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I know that you're blessing people by telling her story, and so she's definitely making a difference that way too. And I won't stop saying that. So I'm wondering then, Jana, if you're able to talk a little bit about like your perspective on how the culture is right now on sharing pregnancy loss. And infant loss is a little bit different, but specifically for pregnancy loss, especially early losses, it's just something that it feels like it's not streamlined socially. So I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about like why we should share and talk about our pregnancy losses, even though it makes some people uncomfortable.
I think it starts from the moment of when we as parents find out that we have a child, that we've conceived a child. We wonder, when should we share the news, right? Is it okay to share the news as soon as we find out? Do we wait? Do we wait until our first doctor's appointment? Do we wait until the first ultrasound? When do we share that news? And a lot of that is around, what if the baby doesn't survive? What if the baby doesn't make it? Then if we tell all these people and we were excited about it, we have to go back and share that we lost the child. So I think that affects a lot of people because we as a culture in general don't like to talk about death. We think that it's going to cause it to happen. We think, if we talk about sharing where we're at in our pregnancy journey, that, what if we lose our child? What will that look like? But it's so important to know that if you don't share that you're pregnant, if you wait, then you also have to carry that secret, or sometimes feel like you have to carry that secret of if you have a miscarriage. And, I believe that at the moment of conception is when there's life. So the moment that you find out that you're pregnant, it's a life. So you need to be able to grieve that life if you lose it at 2 weeks, or if you lose it at 40 weeks, or whatever stage of pregnancy you're in. That life is worth grieving. If we hide from the grief that we feel, it's going to complicate the grief that you're experiencing, because not only do you not be able to process it with people that could help you if you're trying to hide it, but shoving it down is going to prevent us from enjoying that life. Just as Fernanda has demonstrated today about how she's talking about her daughter is still alive today because she is using it as a tool to help other people. So even through her loss, she's allowing her daughter to be alive. And I hope that our culture will start to see that shift and make that shift so that other mothers don't have to feel the shame that they feel. A lot of times people, just assume that maybe they did something wrong, but they need to know that they didn't, and they need to be supported through the process.
Yeah.
And Jamie, can I just add one thing? I think the point you brought, what you read in the beginning, I think I think we are people that we are not educated to talk about death at all, right? But then right now, because of the social media, everybody just share the nice things, right? We started to exclude the sorrow, the bad, but everything's part of life, right? And then if we're not being able to integrate everything, right, then I think we will increase the issues that we are facing right now to look to the death that is part of life. And my feeling, and I think I said the same in the other video, but my feeling is that we are so disconnected of the death because we're not being able to live the life in the presence in full, right? Then I think if we are able to do that, I think we will probably increase the chances that we have to see a little different those type of situations. And one thing I noted this probably a week or so ago is that I don't know if you guys saw that, but John Legend, they lost their son, right? And they posted a picture in the social media, the wife, himself, and the baby. And of course, they have tons of people, tons of followers, right, in the social media. And a lot of people was offering like some nice words and some help, but there was a lot of people criticizing them because they posted those pictures, right? Then this is a proof that how the people, we are not prepared for this, right? And nobody understands how beneficial was for everybody what they did, sharing their picture and raise a little bit more awareness of this topic. Right?
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I just go back to, for me, those 3 days in the hospital with you, Fernanda, were, there's the obvious emotions there, but having Beatrice right there with you and like watching how you and your husband were with her, having that opportunity to say hello and make those memories before you said goodbye was beautiful. Like it was beautiful. And I think sometimes what you said about in our culture being really disconnected from death, we miss a lot of those opportunities. Like in your specific situation, we would, if you hadn't had those days, you would have missed that opportunity to say hello, to bond, to do all the things that I've heard you say and watch you do before, dressing her, singing to her, praying with her, all of those things that you had looked forward to doing with your baby. You still got to do with her a little bit, obviously, not even close to the same, but being with her in that way, and watching the both of you with her in that way is something I'm never going to forget. And I think it's a big lesson that I've learned from that whole process, and learning how to better hold space for people, whether their babies are here with us on earth or not.
Yeah.
Did I? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No,
Fernanda.
go ahead, Jenna.
I was just going to say too, a lot of times we as women worry about what other people are going to think. But I think in that precious time, we have to not worry about what other people are going to think. And we have to be willing to be an advocate for ourselves. Or if you have a doula, that would be, something that the doula can help with as well. But to allow you to make precious memories, because a lot of people just assume that because their child's gone, that they don't, necessarily have the opportunity to spend time with their child. So to advocate for that and to be willing to, make those memories and enjoy the time that you have with your child are so important and will help you carry on their legacy as well.
Yeah. And one thing that happens with me is we took some pictures, right? Jamie was the photographer as well. And I have a picture. Of course, most of the pictures we are crying or we are just like connected with her. But there are two pictures, one that we took all together, Jamie, Dr. Swift, myself, my husband, and Beatrice, and another one with each one of them each time. And those pictures, I'm smiling. I'm super smiling. And when I saw those pictures after, I was asking myself, why I'm smiling? I mean, I took some time. I was feeling guilty because how come I was smiling? I mean, everybody was like a normal in the picture and I'm the only one like really smiling. And I was feeling guilty because I thought, how come I'm smiling on those pictures, right? And a little bit at the time, I understood that, of course, I mean, I was super proud of my daughter. I am proud of her, right? And I could feel the happiness, the peace, the joy to have her there, right? And then I think it's important to say that we can smile as well. I mean, there are a lot of pain, but there is a lot of love as well, and then it's okay. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. You're still the mother to that child.
Yeah.
I think that's a really beautiful transition into our next topic, because the grief process can look so different. But there are still similarities when you lose a child in the womb. There's a lot of the same processes that happen, whether that child is inside the womb or not. And like you said, Fernanda, there is room. It's okay to find that joy and everything too.
Yeah.
And Jana, I'm wondering from your expertise, if you can talk through a little bit of why, or what that grieving process might look like when you lose a baby in the womb.
So a lot of times a lot of times when we're pregnant, we're always preparing for when that child is born, right? So you're preparing for the future with just the belief that that child's going to live, right? So when you get to the point when you start to realize that that child is not going to live, you're not only grieving the loss of that child, but you're grieving the loss of the future with that child. So it's difficult, and that's why I think it's, really important, like we just had talked about, of making memories with your child, whether they're spiritually present with us or not, physically present with us or not, that, when your child's within your womb and you lose them, nobody else knows your child like you know your child as a mother. So you get to feel your child, and even if they're not that old, when you're not that far along, when you have that child, you as a mother still feel that baby within you on a spiritual level, on an emotional level. So to lose the child that early can present a whole bunch of different challenges for the world around us, because they don't know the child like we know the child. A lot of times our culture says, well, you were only such and such weeks pregnant. Well, you shouldn't feel like you lost very much. Our culture very much talks about how, they compare, like, how long have you been with somebody? That should affect the amount of your grief that you should have. But a life is a life. So it's so important to allow yourself to process through that grief, and to recognize that your grief of your child, no matter how far along you are, is an important process to go through, and to not shame yourself, because that's one of the big things as mothers, that we feel like, wonder what we did wrong. But again, to know that it wasn't anything that you did wrong. You have to allow yourself to process through it. And I think we're going to talk about it later on too, but how different it can be for, the dad or other family members to not be completely aware of what that child meant to you. So
Yeah. Why don't you go ahead and go into that a little bit, Jana? I think that's a good lead in.
sure. So as a father, since they don't have that physical connection with the infant, with the baby, they are in a different space than we as mothers are in. But that doesn't mean that they shouldn't grieve. That doesn't mean that that still wasn't their child. But as dads, it's easy to shut off those emotional feelings and to disconnect, because as males in our culture in general, they're taught not to cry. They're taught not to be in touch with their emotions. So to have this child that they weren't physically able to connect with sometimes, and Fernanda, that that you were far enough along that you were able to connect with your daughter, is amazing. So to be able to have that opportunity, if you're far enough along, to build that relationship. But earlier on, if the pregnancy is earlier along and you don't have that physical child with you, the father may have a harder time coming forward and talking about their grief, because it's not a tactile thing for them. And to allow, I think about, even on the internet, there's hardly any talk about dads during this month, right? That it's more focused on the mom. And even though moms aren't very well supported at all, dads are even less supported. So to be able to speak truth into dads and say, you know what, this was your child just as much as it was your wife or your partner's child, and to encourage them to grieve, to encourage them to share the feelings and to open up, because it's so easy to try to shove it down and act like it was nothing.
Yeah, definitely. I want to talk a little bit about those support networks, and we're going a little bit out of order here. But the three pillars of support that we can talk about is not something that I've created or thought up on my own at all, but they are companionship, which we've talked a little bit about, and that's more about, you know, someone who will really hold the space for you. So not somebody who is going to say, oh, I'm so sorry. And of course, companions will say that. But it's people who are going to when you companion someone, you are by their side. You are not above them, behind them, below them, trying to pull them along, anything like that. You are by their side, holding space, and a lot of times not saying anything at all, but just allowing the mom or the dad or the grieving person to feel exactly what they're feeling, because this is completely uncharted territory. It's not something that anybody ever wants to go through, and everybody goes through it a little bit differently. And so to have a companion through that journey is a support system that I would say, if anybody is watching this and you don't have that, you just think about someone in your life that you can reach out to, who is not automatically going to, you know, speak into that space with words that don't do anything, or with words that sort of shove it under the rug. And maybe we can talk right now about examples of what to say or not say. And I think my biggest one is, you know, if you're being a companion, if you are someone who is close with that person, or even if you're not that close, asking them questions about how today is going, like specific questions, but also it leaves space for them to share. So how is today going for you? How is your body feeling today? Because your body and your emotions and everything else are probably all over the place. And so it's those sorts of things. My number one phrase that I see thrown around of people who don't know what to say, and so they say the wrong thing to someone who experienced a loss, is any sentence that start with the two words "at least." So Jana, you said a little bit about that before. At least you weren't further along. At least you're young and you can still have more kids. At least whatever. Like if it starts with those two words, it's never a good statement. And so this segment in my mind was sort of meant to be like a PSA for anyone who knows someone going through a loss. And so I'm wondering if either of you could share anything else that comes to mind for you on what to say or not say, or even do or not do.
I think what you said, Jamie, about just holding space is the most important too, because a lot of people don't know what to say. So if you just say, I'm here to listen, ask them, you know, what are you struggling with right now? Do you need time alone, or do you need to be with someone? Because not everybody is the same, and you can't assume anything for anybody, because every loss of a child is different. So I would start with saying, don't assume anything for anybody, and letting them know that you are willing to go through the feelings with them if they need to express their feelings, because a lot of moms might feel shame, might feel grief, might just be, you know, devastated. They're going to be devastated, and they need a space where they can freely talk about that and not feel guilty for having any of the feelings that they're having.
Yeah, and one more thing, it's related to all those at least phrases that most of the moms, and the parents, the families, they listen, right? I think it's important to reinforce that comes from a good intention.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, we are not prepared. We are not educated for this. Then, in the people right now, I think because a little bit, I believe it's because a little bit of this movement that we are like, we need to do all the time. We are in a doing mode, right? And then we need to save the other one from the pain, right? Then we say something, we do whatever, right? And we are not able to connect, right? And feel. There is I was talking to a therapist the other day, and she was telling me that the empathy is when we look to the other, and if I was in their shoes, what I would do, right? But now the compassion is a refined empathy, because the compassion is, let's walk through together, right? And then if you feel the pain, I will feel the pain with you, right? And it's a different perspective on how to deal with that. Then I think most of the people that say those probably unreasonable phrases or comes from a good place, but unfortunately we're not educated for this. And I think when we think about the entire population, I think if we can target the people that will provide the first support, that is the health professionals, right? Doctors, doulas, nurses. I think we can create multipliers for this, and maybe we can have a better support for the families.
Yeah, that's a wonderful perspective on that, Fernanda. And I agree completely that, of course, most people are wanting to provide comfort, but they simply don't know how.
Mm-hmm.
And I think acknowledging that intention is really important,
Mm-hmm.
even though in some cases it's either neutral, or sometimes in the worst case, it can even add to the pain.
Mm-hmm.
And so the next area that I want to talk about is related to those support networks. So talked about companionship. So having someone there who's willing to really go through it with you, feel the things you're feeling, and hold space for you. Beyond that is support networks. And if I can share, so I would have drawn something ahead of time if I would have known that this was coming up. But so sometimes what it looks like, there's an article that describes support networks and sort of like this grief going in and out as concentric circles. So the grieving family is in the middle of this concentric circle, or of this like diagram. And then there's the smaller circle here, and those would be your companions, the people who are closest to you, who are going through it with you. Beyond that are ideally would be your support networks. And then you have your acquaintances and other people that you run into on a day-to-day basis, or maybe infrequently, and it goes out. And so the rule is you always want to put support, offer that space holding to the circles that are smaller, of course. So to the circles who are closer to the grieving family. And then there is secondary grieving that goes on as well. And in the last video, we saw some of that. We talked about some of that, how the nurses and the doctors and the midwives and the doulas, we truly do feel those things with our clients or the patients when they're grieving and when they go through a loss. And so to process that, we need to process in a larger circle. So everyone has their own circles, and it's establishing those that are right for you so that you feel good about having other people holding space for you, and then, processing out and then giving comfort in. So I just thought that was a really cool illustration. If anybody is watching and like not really knowing how to, how to go about this, it provides a little bit of structure and like, okay, yes, I am right there. So I need to only provide comfort in. And that doesn't mean you don't cry. That doesn't mean you don't truly feel things. But processing that grief for yourself goes outward. And no matter who you are, I feel like that's why the support networks are so valuable, and that can take a number of different forms. And so that can be therapists, counselors. There are all kinds of groups out there, not enough. And I think that some areas of the world do it much better than the United States. What else would you add to that for support networks, things that have helped you, Fernanda, and things you can recommend for people?
Yeah, I think the support I received, I mean, when this happened with me, I didn't know what was a good or bad because I never passed through that, right? But I think the fact that I had you and Dr. Swift with me, and not trying to take me from the pain, just staying there with me and suffering with us and honoring Beatrice with us. Sometimes there's nothing to say. There's nothing to say that will be better. There's nothing to say that will make it worse, because it's the worst pain ever, right? Mm-hmm. Then sometimes the people don't say something because they believe that we'll start to be crazy or cry or whatever. They are afraid. But nothing will make worse, but nothing will make better as well. Then the fact to be present and stay with us, I think this made all the difference, right? But I think what I feel is that you and also Dr. Swift, you guys, you guided us, because it's what I said before, when we face a situation like that, it's a out of body experience. I mean, we are lost. It's like a matrix where it seems there are multiple lives and you don't know who you are anymore. You don't know what is going on. You feel completely lost. And the fact that Jamie and Dr. Swift, you guys guided me through the process, guided Saverio, my husband, through the process, right? I mean, let's take pictures, right? We didn't know how important the pictures would be for us, but our memories, we end up forgetting, right? I mean, we are not being able to hold the images forever. And in COVID situation, today I have the pictures and I can show our family that they were not here. They couldn't say bye to Beatrice. Then those type of things, we cannot think on that moment because we are so devastated that those type of, okay, you have option like of the labor, you want a C-section, you want to induct, what do you want to do, right? You want to stay here, you want to go back home, you want to stay with Beatrice, do you want to see Beatrice, you don't want to see Beatrice, right? There are some recommendations, but there are also like how we can empower this couple, right? We felt this, we felt empowered to decide and understand, okay, pictures are nice, right? It's better we take. If we don't want to see, fine, but at least we have the register, right? I think also we were in COVID when I had Beatrice. Dr. Swift was really helpful talking to the management of the hospital to allow Jamie to stay there with us, right? Because in a normal situation, probably we wouldn't have her there, but they in a way, they talked to the hospital and they allowed. And this was key because Jamie was there 100% of the time with us, right? And sometimes I would say that hold our hands and crying with us was the best support we could have. Because I could see, and I told this also in the other video, but it's important to say that sometimes the professionals, they feel concerned to cry and make everything worse. Never will be worse again. And every time that I saw the nurses, Jamie, Dr. Swift, that they were looking to Beatrice, crying on her and feeling the pain, it was a way that I understood for me that they can see what I'm feeling. They can see my daughter. They honor the life of Beatrice, right? And this has helped me to go through the grief, right? I mean, right now for me, when I look back, I can see very clear that those steps were important, were really important. Right after I left the hospital, I asked Jamie. Jamie was with us here at home. And I decided to pack and return most of the items, right? Seems very early, but I was sure that I would like to return. And Jamie supported without judgment, without saying, oh, it's too early. No, let's remove everything. I mean, I feel that on this process, there is just a place to listen the family. There is no place for recommendations because it's very individual.
Thank you for those words, Fernanda. Jana, is there anything that you would recommend in terms of support networks, or can you say a few words about how important those support networks are for grieving families in this situation?
Yeah, I think it's important to figure out who you can trust and who you can be open and honest with. Yeah. Because you may have the best of friends, but they just don't know how to handle it. They don't know how to grieve, right? They don't know how to grieve with you, to companion you through your grief. So it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody that you might think it would be. Sometimes it's another mom who has gone through a similar experience, to reach out to somebody who you might not have a very good relationship with, but has gone through a similar experience. You might get much more healing and support through them than your best friend or your mom or your, a sibling or whatever. But sometimes with that too, there's family members, there are close friends who have gone through it. So it's just being willing to be vulnerable with the people who feel comfortable to connect with. So, and for some people, they don't have any options at all. They don't have family around them. They don't have a good support network. So to not be afraid to reach out to places like counseling agencies or to churches or just support groups in general are good resources, because again, you cannot walk this journey alone. You have to be well supported. You have to be willing to take the step. And that first step is often the scariest step to take, to just say, you know what, I need help. I can't do this on my own. And, getting back to the dads too, dads don't talk about it. So to find other dads that have gone through it and who are willing to talk about it too can be a huge source of support.
Thank you. I don't really have a good transition into this next one, but with the limited time we have left, I do want to talk about healing rituals and the things that we can do to honor these babies. It's going to be different for everyone. It's going to be different within the family as well. Whether it's, both partners are going to have their own ways of honoring the baby. And I think having that conversation is something that can be healing in and of itself. And so when I say ritual, and I'll ask Jana and Fernanda to expand upon this, when I say ritual, what I mean is anything that allows you to hold space and intention for the life of that baby. So whether it's a religious ceremony, or like a really common example that I hear of a lot is planting trees in honor of the baby, whether that's on the date, the anniversary of a loss, or on the due date, to then watch that tree grow is something that can be really special. What else comes to mind for both of you when you think about rituals that are healing?
I was going to say some good things, like, if you did have clothes for your child, or a special blanket, to have a bear made so that it's something tangible. Sometimes when you're feeling that grief, you just need something to hold on to. So there's some organizations that will make bears out of clothing or out of blankets. That's a good tangible thing. Other things you can do is get fingerprints made or footprints made, and you can get that made into like a necklace or a keychain or something. Again, something tangible to hold on to help center you during your grief are good things. Don't be afraid that if you want to celebrate their birthday, you can still do that, that you can still have celebrations for their life, even if they're not there, that will help you as a family to remember your child and to help you as a family process through the grief that you're experiencing. And that grief is a lifelong journey. So you can't expect as a mother that you're going to be over it in a year. So to know that you're going to want to be doing things throughout your life to help remember that child and to cherish that child. So to, not be afraid to talk about that child. And, a lot of times people feel like that child, if it was a stillbirth or died in utero, that it wasn't really a child. So to even speak life into, say, you have 3 children that are alive and 1 that's up in heaven, or whatever, whatever you can say that you feel comfortable with, to still honor that child in conversation is important as well.
Yeah. And Fernanda, I know that this is really important for you as well, and you feel really strongly about holding a place for that child within your family. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think all those possibilities are important. But I want to share, I joined a conference recently about death and life. And I had an opportunity to meet a guy. He's American, and he has a project that calls Red Thread Project. And basically what he does is he sit together with a child with a rare disease, and he helped them to write a book. But the only request he has is, end of each book, the child need to give to the people 2 lessons about the life. And most of the lesson is that they don't want to be forgotten. Then I think in the end, our babies, they want to be remembered, right? Whatever we do to keep them alive on us, whatever is the way, I think the most important thing is we need to remember them, right? We need to feel the joy of their lives, and we need to respect their destiny, right? Their life and their death the way it was. And when we do that, I think we can feel the peace, we can feel the joy, we can feel the happiness, and we are able to keep them alive on us, right?
Thank you. Thank you so much. I know we're running up against time here, so I do want to thank you both for giving your insights today. It's an honor to be talking with both of you. Jana, where can people get a hold of you if they would like to, if you're open to having people contact you if they're looking for resources?
Sure. I'm a part of Abundant Life Counseling Center. We're on the east side of Green Bay. If you want to check out our website, it's abundantlifecounselingcenter.com.
Okay. And do you do like telehealth, telecounseling visits as well?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
That's a very good point too. Yep. We can do telehealth.
Okay. Awesome. Fernanda, again, I know you're spending so much time and energy on this, and it's needed and it's wonderful. So I want to thank you for recording this again with us today. And I think that's it. Any final thoughts?
No, thank you so much. And I think it's a pleasure for me to talk about this and being able to honor Beatrice's life and then give a little bit of a help to other people when they are facing the same situation. And if someone needs something to talk or some help, I'm available as well.
Thank you. That's very generous. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jamie, for making space for this conversation.
You're so welcome. So thank you everyone for watching and have a great day. Bye-bye.